Hi, welcome to a lesson on Dracula, chapters 1 to 4. It's part of the Imagined Worlds module for A-level language and literature. Today we're going to have a look at these first 4 chapters and at the gothic motifs which run throughout the novel. To complete this lesson successfully, you need to have read chapters 1 to 4 of the novel. If you haven't already, please pause and read them now. Make notes as you read. Welcome back. Got some key terms to think about as we study Dracula. I need you to write these down along with definitions somewhere in your file to keep them nice and safe. You'll need these throughout the 2 years of your study. So, we'll start with the narrator, this fictional entity responsible for telling the story in the novel. We've got more than one narrator in Dracula. These 4 chapters are narrated by just Jonathan Harker in the form of diary entries, but throughout the novel we get many different voices. The story world in Dracula ranges around Europe in the late 19th century. It's familiar and yet it's not. It's just far enough away and just different enough to make it interesting and engaging. We'll talk lots about the characterisations, the strategies that authors and readers use to build and develop their characters, well, that Bram Stoker uses in this instance. We're also going to look at point of view, and as I've just said, there are many different perspectives used in the novel, and you get the different realities of all of these different characters. The genre, it's a gothic novel. It's interesting because it's not just a gothic novel, it's also an adventure, a mystery, but predominantly it's most definitely a gothic novel, and that's what we're going to look at. And we're going to look at the way that we find out all about what characters think, especially by the fact that a lot of this is diary entries or letters. Okay, so we've got all sorts of control going on there. So make sure you paused and got lots of good notes for this one. Welcome back. So, having read chapters 1 to 4, what do we know about Jonathan Harker? What things do we actually know about him? The concrete things that we know. And then we're thinking about what we infer about him because of that. So I'd like you to pause now and make some notes about that. As many notes as you possibly can. Welcome back. So, things we actually know about Jonathan Harker. He's a solicitor. He's just qualified as a solicitor and he's been sent to visit Dracula to help him with some transactions, some property purchases. He's got a fiancée called Mina. He's always taking very interesting food and he takes lots of notes about what he's been eating so he can share this with Mina. He uses shorthand, so he's quite modern, I think. And anything else you've thought of, hopefully you've thought of more than just this. Okay. What do we infer about Jonathan Harker from this then? He's a bit pedantic, isn't he? He's pedantic and thorough. He's a typical solicitor, I think, in the same way that you find in Jekyll and Hyde, with the narrator of Jekyll and Hyde, Utterson, is very thorough, very detailed, and likes everything to be right and proper. He likes... And it's almost as if Bram Stoker is setting us up with this person who likes detail and gives us all sorts of information so that he stands out against the character of Dracula. He's complete opposite to him. Having said that, he is very brave and determined. When he finds himself locked in the castle, he's determined to escape. He's also a little naive, for example. He has, when the locals are busy giving him gifts and things, he can't quite work out what's going on. And he falls for Dracula's spell initially, doesn't he? So you might have more notes than this, but you need to pause now and add to your notes so that you've got lots and lots of thorough notes. So here's a motif, okay? Power and constraint. This all came from an article in the British Library, and you'll find a link to that later in the notes of this PowerPoint. So we're going to explore several Gothic motifs. And the first one is Power and Constraint. I want you to pause. I want you to pause the thing, read this and make some notes about it, okay? Welcome back. Let's think about how this is explored in the first 4 chapters of Dracula. Jonathan Harker is definitely feminised. He's completely in the role of victim in this. He's the victim of Dracula, trapped in the castle and in a lot of danger, and he's also powerless. He's completely isolated and he's powerless to resist the 3 women who prey on him. And Dracula himself seems to have some sort of designs on him. So you've got that erotic and sexuality, transgressive sexuality, even in the first 4 novels of the chapter. So pause and make some more notes, please. Welcome back. So we're now going to think about the character of Dracula. What do we know about him? And then what do we infer about him from this? So I'd like you to pause. You're thinking about the techniques that Bram Stoker uses to create the character of Dracula. So pause and make some notes. Welcome back. What do we know about Dracula? We know what he looks like. We get a lovely description of him. We know that he's pale, he has very red lips, silver hair and hairy palms. It's a bit unnatural, nobody has hairy palms. He's very strong. He sleeps in a box of earth during the day. He doesn't eat. He has no reflection. He owns a castle and seems to have control over wolves. He also seems to love those wolves, doesn't he? From all of this, we infer that there's something evil or supernatural about him. And we also know that he's a danger to Jonathan Harker. And he's a very, very powerful man. And people locally are afraid of him. So pause and add to your notes. Welcome back. Time for another motif. So we're thinking about strange places. It's usual for characters in Gothic fiction to find themselves in a strange place. However, Bram Stoker sets his novel in Central Europe, which is not too far away. It's not too strange a place. However, for Jonathan Harker, it is a really strange experience. It's really outside his remit, outside his experience so far, and it seems dangerous because of that. So he's marginalised by his lack of understanding of the languages, and he is quite clear about the fact that he doesn't speak the language and he has to keep looking up words to find out what's going on. So he really is, Bram Stoker has created this story world by taking something potentially familiar but making it frightening and unusual. So we recognise it but we don't feel comfortable there. So pause and make yourself some notes here. So the first 4 chapters of the novel are told from the perspective of Jonathan Harker. He's a homodiegetic narrator. And I want you to think about what the effect this has on a reader. What effect does it have on you? I find myself talking to Jonathan Harker. I feel that the fact that I'm reading his diary entries is quite an insight into how he thinks and feels. He's very open with what he puts in the diary, because diaries are actually not meant for other people to read, and he also is writing them in shorthand, so he thinks that he can say whatever he feels, and he can write whatever's going on in his head without fear of someone else reading them. And yet here we are, there's someone else who's reading those. I think the fact that Jonathan Harker is really logical and down to earth, it makes the story more horrific. We sort of sympathise. We were a bit bored by him, I think, initially, and yet he's not an unpleasant person. We don't dislike him, and we feel that he's out of his depth very quickly. He's just like us as well. He's interested in food. He's excited by the thought of travel. So it does make us quite warm to him, I think, in many ways, and also makes us afraid that something dreadful is going to happen to him. So pause and make yourself some notes. Now for another motif. We've got this world of doubt. I'd like you to read this, pause and make some notes about it. In particular, think about the experiences that possibly sublime experiences that novels create, okay? So pause and make yourself some notes. Welcome back. I'd say that actually Dracula, the character of Dracula, is an awesome and terrifying character. He's really, really beyond reason, beyond explanation. And initially he's set up as completely logical, a count who is should be respectable because he's wealthy, and Jonathan Harker certainly respects him. And yet we get this uncertainty constantly because Dracula, the character, appears to be beyond human. He's something other than human. So he is terrible and awesome. And he does give us, he shocks us at the limit of our everyday lives. He makes us think that there may be things beyond our understanding, okay? And that challenges what we think is the truth. So, I hope you make some more notes about this, but I hope you've got lots and lots of notes now about the first 4 chapters. You're going to need them as we work our way through the rest of the lessons this week. Thank you for listening. Bye.